It's the Anime Movie Podcast with your hosts, Kat and Joe. Hi, everybody. Voice crack and a half there. Welcome to the Anime Movie Podcast. I am Joe Welke.
I'm Kat Hamilton.
And today we're doing part 2 of the Memories film anthology series.
Memories.
And today we're talking about Stink Bomb by Tensai Okamura. But it was written by Mr. Katsuhiro Otomo.
Of Akira fame.
Previously, we talked about, what's it called? Magnetic Rose, which we were big fans of. And everything that we've really read about this anthology series has been like, Magnetic Rose is the creme de la creme of this anthology series, and everything else is kind of a letdown after that. And so, yeah, we're getting into the letdowns, I guess.
Oh my God. What an intro to this.
No, I'm just kidding.
Everything we've read about this says that this won't be as good as the last thing that we saw. So,
yeah.
And here it is, folks.
Here it is. Stink Bomb, everybody.
So Memories is an anthology that's all different sci-fi stories that are based on, oh God, how do I say his last name? Otomo.
Mm-hmm.
Otomo Katsuhiro. Just say it really fast. It's fine. Based on Otomo Katsuhiro's...
I thought it was Otomo.
Otomo?
It ends with an O.
Oh yeah, rhymes with Kokomo.
Way down in Kokomo. Way down with Otomo.
Otomo Katsuhiro's manga series. They're all sci-fi manga based stories.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all short films, sort of 40-ish minutes.
Mm-hmm.
How long was Stink Bomb?
I'm not quite sure. I thought they were all about 45 minutes long. I don't know what the total runtime of this is, but I think Magnetic Rose was 45 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, and these all came out in 1995. And Joe was very disappointed to hear that in 2021, they plan on coming out with an English dub of this.
Yeah.
But we watched it subbed, which is his least favorite.
Look, it's not my least favorite. Like, I'm down to watch a subbed thing, but I prefer dubbed so much more, especially when we're doing this because, we're taking notes. And sometimes when I'm writing notes, I miss some stuff and I don't want to miss stuff.
I've seen you completely flat out refuse to watch something because it was subtitled.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I have to be really interested in it if I want to watch a subtitled thing like a series, because series that are subtitled, it's like such an investment. Like there's hours that you're going to be watching it. I've watched a couple of films for this podcast that were subtitled and I didn't like it, but of the ones that we've seen that have been subtitled, both of them have gotten 11 so far.
Yeah.
So,
you've been a big fan.
And the subtitled series that I've watched, I enjoyed them too, but it was because I was like heavily invested in them and I had to like really pay attention. And it was a concept that I was really invested in to begin with. So I just kind of endured the subtitles, but I would much prefer that there was a dub. But since we don't have that yet, we did it subtitled. And yeah. What are your initial thoughts coming out of Stink Bomb?
My initial thoughts.
Wait, should we do a synopsis?
Absolutely.
Okay, so there is a man named Nobu Tanaka Nobu, and he is getting he's under the weather. He's feeling sick, and he just got a flu shot / cold shot. They say cold shot, but I've never seen a cold shot.
No, and they say that, this cold's a real bugger. I don't know what the subtitles were going for.
Yeah.
It seemed maybe British English sometimes, but some poor translations. But yeah, I think it's probably like a flu shot.
Yeah. So he gets a flu shot and he goes into work because he can't stand being at home anymore. and he's still feeling kind of sick. He works at like a medical research lab, and
And he's sneezing all
yeah,
over the medical
I was
research.
gonna say very bad sanitary conditions here.
He literally sneezes into a tissue and then rubs it in his hands into a little ball, so he makes sure that he gets all of the mucus all over his hands, and then throws it onto a trash can that's overflowing, so it just
Yeah.
kind of rolls away.
Yeah, and so he's feeling under the weather, and then one of his colleagues is kind of like, "Hey, man, you're still feeling sick, huh? Well, the boss has this like new experimental fever drug that you should try, and it's supposed to like be able to knock out a cold or a fever like really quickly. You should go try it. It's on his desk." And then so he goes to the boss's desk, takes the pills, and then chaos ensues.
It really does. Yeah.
Literal chaos. And yeah, should we? Yeah, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can talk about the music briefly
Yeah,
because the music was very standout. There was some really interesting experimental jazz, and then there was also a lot of ska.
yeah,
Very cool ska.
yeah. It was like kind of old school ska too, like because this came out in 1995, and that was kind of when ska was like getting its legs again. And I really liked it. I thought that I didn't know what the tone of this was supposed to
I
be.
totally agree. I totally agree. Because some parts of it are almost slapstick,
Mhm.
but then some parts of it are kind of dark.
Yeah, it's very. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know whether to take it seriously or like because there's a bit of like sci-fi mystery going on, but then
Yeah.
there's like you said, there's all this slapstick kind of Mr. Bean, Mr. Magoo type stuff.
But then also
going
kind
on.
of body horror and
Yeah,
a number of other things that are quite dark. It's kind of like, this film is kind of like talking to somebody and you think you're kind of enjoying their company. And you're like, oh, you're kind of cool. And then they make like too much eye contact and say something really dark and then crack a smile afterwards. And you're like, I don't know how to feel.
yeah. See, I wrote down. I literally wrote down, love the ska soundtrack, but I'm not sure if it fits
Mm,
because I didn't know whether it fit. And at certain points, I thought that it did.
yeah.
And at other points, I was like, this doesn't feel right. Like,
I had moments where I was like, this shouldn't work,
hmm
but it's working for me right now. I think there was one song in the beginning that was a ska song that also had some vocals, and the vocals were weird.
mm-hmm.
And I wasn't sure about that one. But
Well, I also was confused about it because we were coming off of the heels of Magnetic Rose, which was this very like beautiful sci-fi horror type thing, and it was very serious. And then we get into Stink Bomb, which is like like you said, it's like slapstick, dark humor, but then also just dark at certain points, and then
Yeah.
very humorous at certain points. So I was like, what? I also thought that all of these were going to have to do with memory or like the concept of memory, and this doesn't really do that, I don't feel.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from there. Although I guess it's my point about this will be a little bit more spoilery, so we'll have to wait.
Okay. What did you think of the animation?
I thought the animation was fantastic.
I thought it was really good too.
And I didn't notice any CGI.
I felt like there's a part where there's like gas happening in this, and I felt like the gas looked a little wonky at
Okay.
times, but otherwise I thought it looked really good too.
But some of the animation reminded me of Akira.
Mm-hmm.
And especially some of the like electricity that you see and things like that. But all of the cars as well looked hand drawn. I love hand drawn cars in anime because so frequently they're the first thing to become CGI.
Yeah.
And they're so obvious and they really take you out of the story. But I thought this whole thing was animated beautifully.
Yeah. And we go into this thinking like, oh, this is going to be a letdown after Magnetic Rose, but I wasn't really let down. Like
wasn't
I
let down,
enjoyed
no.
it.
I was delighted.
Yeah, I'm pretty amped to talk about it. I'm
Yeah.
pretty amped about Stink Bomb. Should we get into spoilers?
Yeah, let's do it.
They wouldn't spoil this, right?
Oh,
You
God.
can't spoil this,
Please
right?
don't spoiler talk, anime movie podcast, spoiler talk.
Okay, so we're in the spoiler section now. It turns out that the experimental pills that Nobu has taken somehow had like a chemical mixture reaction with the flu shot that he got that emits like a gaseous thing that kills everyone around him.
See, I didn't think that it had to do with the flu shot. I think that's just what the pills do. Later, you find out that they're, an experimental bioweapon.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the flu shot thing was just like a misdirection, or was supposed to lead up to him needing the pills.
Mm. See, this is why I think it had to do with the flu shot. Number one, because the Wikipedia says it. That it does. Number
see.
two, because towards the end of the film, the head medical technician director people were like, it's not the pills, it's how the pills are mixing with something that's in his diet. And it also, the gas that kills everybody interacts with his emotions.
Yeah, I don't remember them saying anything about the diet, but I do remember them saying that the gas that he's emitting that is killing all mammals around him, it becomes stronger when he becomes emotionally more distressed.
Mm-hmm.
And the more calm he is, the less he's emitting it. But by the time that he gets to a point where he's actually like terrified, he's killing things within, miles from him.
Yeah. Well, so I know they did say that where like it's affected by his mood, and the more calm he is, the less. But we never see him calm. Like every time we see him, it's just like there's death surrounding him for miles.
Although he does remain weirdly chill about that. He's kind of like, oh, huh.
Yeah.
He's not like panicking.
Did you know that this is based off of like a real life thing?
Yes.
Do you want to talk
Gloria
more about that?
Ramirez.
Yeah.
And I remember this.
You do?
Oh, yeah. I mean, she's from Riverside.
This happens in like the LA area. So you speak about it because you lived through it.
Sure. Gloria Ramirez was a cancer patient. And they basically, her body and her blood became toxic to people in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And several people lost consciousness. A couple people had to be hospitalized. And people didn't know what was going on. And as it turns out, well, at least it's theorized that she had been self-medicating for pain. And there was a chemical mixture that ended up causing a very poisonous gas to be released from her body and blood, and et cetera, which quite ironically is strongly carcinogenic.
See, that was another reason why I thought that it was the flu shot mixing with the pills, because when I read about the Gloria Ramirez thing, it was a mixture of her medicines as well.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it was a mixture of two things that she had taken. I thought it was just the one thing that she was taking mixed with something in her body that was bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd have to look at it again.
But that's wild that could happen.
Yeah.
Like it caused like a panic.
Oh yeah. And people initially thought that it was mass hysteria, and that there was like a weird placebo effect where people were like fainting because other people were fainting and didn't think that there was anything else going on. But I'm sure there's so many things that have been based off of that because it's fascinating as a story point.
Yeah. I also want to make mention that we're watching this and we're still like kind of in the throes of the coronavirus pandemic that's going on. And the first movie, Magnetic Rose, had a ship called Corona.
That's true.
This has to do with a pandemic. I wonder what cannon fodder is going to have that's like weirdly predicting the future. Like I saw Nobu, he's wearing a mask in public because he's sick, and it's like, oh, we're wearing a mask, but even back in 1995. That's common practice in Japan, apparently.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I mean, Joe and I recently got our first vaccines, and so when it opens up on him getting a flu shot, it was like, oh, this looks familiar.
Yeah, right.
and then the mass hysteria and all of that. It's funny living through these unprecedented times.
Ugh.
I know, it's horrible. It made my skin crawl. Yeah. I even said it in a funny voice, and it made my skin crawl. But now when I watch sort of disaster movies and things, it's like, oh yeah. I know what that kind of feels like in a very, very small way.
Yeah.
But it's just all got a little bit more relatable.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about this movie to me that makes it so great as a short story is imagining anybody trying to extend this to be a full-length film and how bad that would be.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? It's the right length because it didn't need to be any longer than this. And I think part of the reason is, you get into the concept and, there has to be some kind of a punchline at the end, which there totally is. But to me, this started to feel like watching a series of commercials.
Okay, how so?
When sort of marketing company ends up with an ad campaign where there's actually a storyline that goes through the entire commercial series and it kind of slowly builds one on top of the other.
Yeah.
But for the individual commercials, it has to be kind of fairly simple conceptually because you only have like 30 seconds usually to tell your little short story. So this felt like a bunch of little short story events within, kind of strung out. But like, if you just imagine this as like, like Emergency or one of those like Zycam, one of those sort of immunity. Are you with me right now?
No, I don't know what you're talking about. Zycam?
Yeah, it's a zinc based immunity booster.
Okay.
Or Airborne.
Okay.
Are you going to recognize any of these?
No, I know what Airborne is. Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, Zycam? Are we talking fucking Cetaphil commercials?
Or Theraflu. It felt like it could have been a commercial for any of those things that are supposed to make you better in the way that, if you're sick or keep you from getting sick. And so there's this like over the top advertisement campaign that has to do with being invincible, where even though like things are dropping around you or something's trying to kill you, that you're just like, you just keep going. And then I'm just imagining it like Zycam,
See, I've never seen, the only commercials that I've seen that like kept building off of each other were, the progressive commercials. Like they have like whole side characters now that have their own spoof things now. But there's this Japanese commercial series called Long Long Man, and it's like this it's like some kind of taffy that's really long, and it's about this couple that are together, and then this guy named Long Long Man, and he has this theme song, and it's like Long Long Man, and then his whole thing is like size matters, so he has this like really long taffy shit, and eventually the couple breaks up because the long long man steals the guy's girl, and then it shows like the guy going through all of these like stages of grief, and long long man is just like haunting his dreams. It's like 16 commercials long, and they're all 30 seconds. They all tell their own story within it, but it's a journey that you follow with this guy, and it ends up with like he ends up with long long man or something. It's so ridiculous. But I could see how you could, like this could be commercials like that where it's just like you keep going and it's telling this interesting story within those like 45 second chunks.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was, I don't know. I thought it was funny.
I thought it was funny too, and it also felt like a sitcom. It's such a simple concept of just like, if you're writing a film to shoot in high school and in like a high school film class, somebody taking the wrong thing when they get confused between two bottles, and then it ends up, leading to some adventure or magic or whatever. It's just so basic.
Yeah.
And you could see it coming a mile away, and it was still interesting because you don't imagine taking a pill and everybody else getting sick.
Yeah.
So that was pretty fascinating. But
well, it keeps escalating like to insane. Like that's why I keep saying and thinking back that it's kind of similar to Mr. Bean or Mr. Magoo, because it's like a old school cartoon, because it starts out with this guy and everybody around him, and every living being around him is dying, but for some reason flowers keep
Flowers do
Start
really
moving.
well.
I didn't understand that part.
Yeah, I didn't know either, but I think it was adding to this kind of like sci-fi mystery, and this is kind of interesting. You know, they were saying that all the flowers were blooming at once, so all the flowers of different seasons. So it was kind of, I don't know if there's a word for it, but it's almost like seasonal anachronism, where like a thing is not supposed to be around at that time of year.
Yeah. I wish they would have explained that part a little bit better, or that would have paid off somehow. But I can deal with that. But yeah, so then all these living beings around him are dying, and then the military gets involved and the government gets involved, and they're like, well, what should we do about this guy? And then they start out small. They're like, we got to kill this guy. Well, they had to apprehend him at first, and then they go to try to apprehend him, and then everybody that tries to apprehend him dies. And then they're like, all right, well, then we got to kill this guy. And so they start out with like a sniper, and he misses because for some reason the gas is making everything miss, and it's messing up the like targeting system.
Or also, you know, any sort of manual aim is blocked by the mist being around him. I mean, the whole reason why he's trying to get to Tokyo in the first place is because he ends up hitting an alarm in the building that he was working in when he sees everybody's dead, and he's woken up from this long nap. And he gets on a video call with Nirasaki. And Nirasaki is some kind of government agent or something, and he's kind of like, who the hell are you?
He's
and
like the head of pharmaceuticals in the government or something.
Oh
or
my
new
God, there was an
medicine.
amazing subtitle for what he was. But it was just like medicine making bureau or something.
Yeah.
It was something really silly. But Nirasaki's like, you have to bring a sample of you know that thing. And so he's like, all right. So that's his mission now as the hero of the story is just getting to Nirasaki and bringing him the sample.
Yeah.
And everything else that tries to stop him from that goal fails and fails miserably, even when it's like fighter jets and helicopters and dropping bombs and missiles and destroying the bridge that he's on and destroying the tunnel that he's in.
Yeah. I mean, there's a point where he goes into a tunnel after just like nearly getting sniped from a helicopter, and he comes out of the tunnel and there's like 500 fighter jets launching missiles at him. It's so fucking funny, dude.
And then like his grandma like sees him on the TV and
Sees him on the TV.
yeah. Like his family, and then you cut to his grandma in a helicopter, like trying to speak to him over the loudspeaker and telling him not to go to Tokyo. And she's like, I don't know what's going on, but you're going to put people in danger. And he's just like, Grandma?
Yeah.
Just over. He's like, wait, Grandma? And just keeps going to Tokyo.
All right. I have a question for you.
Okay.
This is a big part of the movie, is that Nobu doesn't realize that he's the one that's causing all of this massive death around him due to the gas that he's emitting, or in the stink bomb or whatever. How long do you think you would make it before you realize that you're the problem? Because Nobu is completely oblivious, and he just keeps on trucking, dude.
I feel like it would be a very good test to explain somebody's personality. You know, way better than like a Cosmo one of those like quizzes to find out what kind of a person you really are. Is if you're emitting a toxic gas, how long does it take before you're like, maybe it's me? Maybe I'm the problem. Because I know a lot of people.
Some kind of therapy breakthrough.
It would be. It would be. I mean, for some people, they immediately assume they're the problem.
Yeah.
You know, if you're more anxious or insecure in general. And then there's other people who might live the rest of their life just killing anyone near them.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, so when Nobu wakes up from his nap, everybody in the hospital is dead. I wouldn't have assumed that it was me at that point. I would have been like, whoa, what the fuck's going on?
Like,
How
why
did
am
I
alive?
survive?
Yeah.
Then they're talking to him and they're like, hey, come to Tokyo and bring the sample of the medicine that you took. It actually might be like this bio weapon that we were developing. And then so he starts off on his journey, and then everything around him is continuing to die. I think that first everything around me is continuing to die, I'd be like, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe this is me. Maybe, dun, 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 I'm the problem.
See, at first, I was wondering if it was him, and I wasn't sure if maybe the thing that he took made him immune to whatever had happened.
Okay.
But then it wouldn't make sense for the chief to be so concerned about the fact that he'd taken it.
Yeah.
But also, if it was just the fact that it was mixing with the like flu shot, why would the chief care if he'd taken any of it? I don't know what they expected.
I don't know. But I mean, this whole film relies on everyone around Nobu being a complete fucking idiot and not saying like, hey, stay back. We think that you might be the problem.
Yeah, there's some great metaphors for, how dangerous it can be when you don't communicate.
Yeah.
um, yeah, I wonder how long it could take, because if you're running and there's panic and you see people dying, you might just be like, okay, I'm still good, but I need to get away from here. So you might just kind of keep going.
Yeah, because I think there are points where Nobu looks behind him and he's like, what's coming after me?
Yeah.
Or like, what's coming that's attacking the people in front of me? I don't know, man. I think that I'd catch on pretty, like, I think that I might catch on. Nobu never catches on, like, up to the straight up end. He fucking kills everybody. Even maybe his poor grandma.
Oh, that'd be really sad.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Americans coming in and saving the day, but then not?
Yeah, I was going to say they didn't even save the day.
They kind of did, but then it went awry.
They found a way to neutralize him sort of by putting him in the NASA super space suit thing. Or maybe those people died and he got in it himself. But I don't know. It was a nice payoff at the end when he comes into the research facility and it's just him and the NASA thing, and he's like, "Hey,
he's Nirasaki."
Yeah, and he's like, "Hey, here's the sample, dude." And then everyone around him is like, "Oh fuck!" And he hits the eject button, and all the gas comes out and kills everybody.
Yeah, and there's a great build up to it because you're not sure who's in the suit, and then when he hands over the briefcase, you're like, "Oh wait, is it?" And then he does something to his helmet to make it so that you can see his face, only you barely can because there's like so much of the gas inside of the suit. And then people are starting to get like a little bit worried, and some people like run out of the building, and he was like, "Oh, this is so rude of me. Let me get out of here." And then presses the eject button. Yeah, and the last frame you see is just like the shocked faces of the people who are all about to die because he's taking the suit off. So I do think that was a pretty great payoff, because you're not quite sure what happened after the Yanks went in with their NASA suits.
Yeah.
And but I thought it felt like a statement about international relations.
This is how I read it, is that so they wanted to kill Nobu, or the Japanese government seemed to want to kill Nobu just to put an end to this. But then the Americans were like, no. We invested money in this and we want to see if this bioweapon works. So we want him alive. We're going to try and save him. And the Japanese people were like, yo, fuck that, dude. Like everyone in Japan is dying. And America was like, nah, fuck everybody in Japan though. Like we spent money on this.
Okay.
I read it as like we're warmongering like assholes, which is, kind of how the rest of the world sees us. And so when we send in
when me and my people,
when us hell yeah Americans come in there and start kicking ass and taking names.
God.
But when the US guy sends in the NASA suits, because they also wanted to test the NASA suits to save him, or to extract him and see about this sample thing. I didn't think of it as like we saved the day. I thought it was like we aren't leaving until we get what we invested our money in. We didn't know when to leave good enough alone or whatever.
Yeah, and I guess when I saw him in the spacesuit at the end, I was like, oh, I guess the Americans were successful after all. But I now kind of think that that they died, and he just took one of their suits.
That's how I read it.
Yeah, I mean, now I agree, because otherwise he would have walked in with other people wearing the same suits.
Yeah, and I knew it was him in the suit right away. Right away, I was like, "Oh, that's gonna be Nobu." Well, he comes in holding the briefcase. Like, why would the NASA people know anything about the briefcase in the first place? Like, they didn't really talk about that in that war room, or at least the American guy didn't. Well, actually, they did talk about it in the war room, I guess, but they didn't know the method of transport. So, yeah, yeah. I just thought that when the NASA guys went in and Nobu started freaking out like crazy and all the lights blew out.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, these NASA dudes are dead. And then he just got into one of the spacesuits like, oh, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think if at no other point you would notice when you're like, oh my God, and you get terrified, and then there's like electricity going everywhere. Like, you would start to connect that, oh, I actually have some level of control over this.
Yeah.
But I kind of get the early on thing where it's like this panic, you don't know what's going on. You see things dying all the time. You're not really thinking about why it's not affecting you yet. You're just like, I need to get out of here.
Mm-hmm. And especially if you have a mission to bring a sample, because that could be the life-saving sample that kept him alive versus everybody else. But once it gets to like the military, everyone around him is dying and everyone's running away from him. That's when I'd be like, maybe I should stay put and like try and get like a cell phone or something. I don't know if they were around in 95.
I think as soon as my grandma was yelling at me from a helicopter.
Yeah.
To not do a thing.
Yeah. As soon as I was being sniped at.
And telling me to go back to the mountains, I'd be like, shit, grandma came back from the dead to tell me this? I mean, if it was actually my grandma, it would be really weird. It'd be very confusing. Here's a hot idea for a zombie film based on this.
Okay.
What if you were the cause of a zombie virus, but you couldn't actually become symptomatic yourself? But as you go to different places, you are making people into zombies. How long do you think it would take you to realize that you were causing people to turn into zombies?
That might be a little bit. How quickly do they turn into the zombies?
Within 90 seconds.
Oh, I think I'd figure that out pretty quickly.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, if it was like a day or two, I'd be like, this shit's happening all around me. I don't know what's going on. Maybe I'm just immune. That I think if it was a day or two, it would take me a while to figure it out. But if it's 90 seconds, I'd be like, ah.
But if you're already like thinking, oh my God, like I'm in an actual zombie apocalypse, and it seems like everywhere I'm going, people are starting to turn into zombies. Like, wouldn't you just be really afraid? And it just feels like it's happening everywhere constantly.
Well, first of all, I think in a zombie apocalypse, everybody likes to talk about the zombie apocalypse as like they're going to go out and they're going to kill some zombies.
Yeah.
That's not me. I think I'd be a very defensive zombie apocalypse person. I'd lock myself into a place.
I was just imagining you being like, listen, I don't like your tone.
Defensive against zombies. Why are you moaning brains at me like that? Did I do something to you?
It's not my fault that you're a fucking zombie, okay?
No, in a zombie apocalypse, I wouldn't be out like hunting zombies.
Yeah.
I would be in my apartment because I'd be scared shitless. And then it'd be like, oh, there's only been like 30 zombies that happened, and we all got them. We got them all neutralized. And I'd be like, oh, okay. Whew. Then I'd go out again and be like, oh, there's more zombies. I think it'd probably take me 3 days before I realized that I was the cause of the zombie. And maybe even 4 or 5, because I'd call people and be like, I don't know what's happening. Every time I go outside, people turn into zombies. I don't know what the fuck.
And also, I don't like your tone. Yeah, I think my zombie apocalypse approach would definitely be hiding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long do you think it would take you?
I think if I had access to media, so I was seeing that, for example,
Oh yeah, I was assuming that I have like access to media.
oh, okay.
And, like my phone and everything.
Yeah, because I mean, I was thinking, if you're watching the news and you're reading news reports and you're seeing that the epicenter seems to be where you are,
Yeah.
and it's not really happening other places, that would clue you in faster. But like, let's say you're in some kind of zombie apocalypse situation and TV signals are down and internet is down. Think it would take you a little longer?
It would take me way longer.
Yeah.
I'd be like, what kind of hellscape do we live in? Everyone's a zombie. Everyone that I meet is a zombie.
Even birds.
Yeah. There's bird zombies. Zombirds. No, but like I said before, I would be a very lock myself into a one place type of thing, and then I'd be paranoid for the rest of my life to go outside.
Yeah, I don't need to pick fights with zombies.
Yeah, no.
I need to go out and be like, I need to be in a different place and kill these things.
Yeah. Well, that was a fun conversation.
That was a fun conversation.
So when he goes into that tunnel and then they blow up the entrance to the tunnel, and then he's like trying to escape, and they start to try and shoot like liquid nitrogen at him to freeze him.
Yeah, they're trying to make him real cold.
Yeah. I was like, why don't you just blow up the other side of the tunnel and trap him in there?
I thought about that too. I think that the liquid nitrogen with fans situation really sounded like somebody was like, you know what I've always wanted to do?
Let's freeze this guy.
I just think now that we're in an emergency situation that somebody's going to let me get out the fans and liquid nitrogen.
Do you think that's a real thing that could be effective?
No. No, I don't. At all.
I didn't think so either. But you never know. I don't know. I never looked into it.
I mean, you could probably just flood something with liquid nitrogen and it would, freeze a person. Turn them into. Did you ever like do liquid nitrogen stuff in science class in school?
No, not that I remember.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody I know in LA, at least, at some point, their science teacher brought in liquid nitrogen, and then you put things in liquid nitrogen and just smash them. It's pretty fun.
What?
Like you put a rose into liquid nitrogen and it freezes instantly, and then you can smash it against a whiteboard and it shatters like glass.
Okay.
And then you do that with like a balloon or random objects, and then you just shatter things for a little while, and then everyone has a good time. But you could just turn him completely into ice. Everything in his body would freeze. But I don't think that doing the mist, I don't think liquid nitrogen mist is the way.
I can understand how the smell emitting from him could kill everyone around him or whatever because of like the Gloria Ramirez thing. But having an effect on mechanical things, like it made a guy misfire from the snipers, and then all of the missiles misfired. And then the liquid nitrogen thing was like, it didn't work because of that, I think.
Yeah, well. I mean, the machines malfunctioning, it does seem like a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, that's a bit.
But, you take a real thing and you stretch it out, and then it becomes a story.
If you were in this story,
okay,
how would you have neutralized Nobu?
Well, I wouldn't,
or at least
go out and pick a fight with a smell.
It's kind of like The Happening. Remember in The Happening when the wind was like the thing that was killing everybody?
I didn't see The Happening.
Oh my, you have to see that. It's so stupid.
Like really selling it.
It's hilarious, but it's not meant to be hilarious. Like this is meant to be pretty funny. Stink Bomb is meant to be like a dark comedy, but there's like some slapstick stuff. The Happening is so serious, and it's supposed to have this message about how humans are affecting the environment, but it is so silly.
Okay.
And that kind of reminded me of this, but this is funny because it's supposed to be funny, and The Happening is funny because it's just so bad and not supposed to be funny. But anyway, back to how would you neutralize Nobu?
I would send a drone with a walkie-talkie zip tied to it.
Okay.
And then I would have some negotiation tactics.
You would just inform Nobu.
Oh, yeah, I would just communicate.
Hey, buddy, we think that it's you that's doing all of this damage. Yeah, that's the most effective way to do that. Like, and no one thought to fucking do that in this movie, except for maybe his grandma. But even she wasn't quite sure what was going on. And, using a megaphone from a helicopter that's like, it looked like it was like 50,000 miles away from him. Probably not the best.
I just loved how his grandma's just like, you need to go back to the mountains. Don't go to Tokyo. I don't know why, but people are going to be in danger. And he just goes, Grandma?
Yeah, and then he starts to try and like catch up to the helicopter on his electric scooter. And it's like, bro, you're not going to. I think the best way, the best attempt was to just try and kill him, but I would have blown up both sides of that tunnel.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you kill him, he still might be effective. He still might be dangerous, but he wouldn't have the brain processes that would make him more potent.
Possibly. But I mean...
But when he was sleeping, he still... I mean, I guess your brain still functions while you sleep.
Yeah. But obviously the best method of neutralization would be to say, hey, we think it's you. Stay put. We're going to quarantine you. And we'll get back to you. We'll send snacks.
Here's a pack of cards. Play some solitaire.
Yeah. But like, just chill. Don't go to Tokyo. And then he's like, what? A drone? I got to get to Tokyo. Fucking idiot, dude.
He did at some point just start to annoy me.
Yeah. I mean, he was the obliviousness of Nobu was just so absurd.
Actually got irritating.
Yeah. Even right up to the very end where at that point it's just funny, but it's like, how did you not know that it's you?
Yeah.
How do you not know? Especially after you get stressed, you see that NASA people are trying to tase you and you scream and all of the lights burst. You have to know something's up at that point.
Yeah. That's when it crosses a line for sure.
Yeah. I don't know. But there were so many bombs dropped on him. There were so many bombs. Like even just the collateral damage would have, number one, would have been blown off that little electric scooter. At least some broken ribs. I mean.
The tax dollars.
Oh my God. The tax dollars spent on trying to neutralize this stink bomb guy. Unreal.
The thing I love about the films we've seen so far as part of Memories is just how quickly they build characters that are believable. I mean, Nobuo ends up being kind of unbelievable. Completely unbelievable because of how oblivious he is.
Unaware.
Yeah. But, I love when you meet somebody really briefly and they only have a couple of lines and you already have a good feel for what that character is. It feels like thought went into it. They don't have to do a lot of characterization necessarily, like direct characterization, but immediately you're like, oh yeah, I know what kind of person that is.
Yeah, I mean, even at the beginning when the chief comes in and he's asking like, who took the pills? You get an exact idea of who he is and what his values are and what's going on. Because he comes in, he starts grabbing people like, who took the fucking pills? And they're like, Nobu did. And he's like, what? You told him to take the pills? We got to get out of here. And then everybody dies. But yeah, I mean, maybe I should watch more short films just because I like the format of it. Like,
it's great.
Here's the concept, get in, get out. Here's the whole story. Deuces.
Yeah.
Like every short film that I've seen previously has always been very pretentious and not good.
Yeah.
And, mainly because I've acted in them.
Well, obviously, a lot of low budget filmmaking will do short films because, short film's a lot cheaper to make than a longer film.
Yeah.
But I think when it's done at a really professional level, it can be so good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that this tells its whole story. It has its concept. It executes it well and has a nice little button at the end. Like it's a great.
And I think in particular, sci-fi short stories. And I think sci-fi short stories in literature are really good. And I think that sci-fi short films can be really good. And it's because, it really hits that theme. It knows what it's doing and it gets there. And then there's like a great punchline at the end. And it's such a satisfying format.
Yeah.
there's like mystery, and then you like, get an idea of some adventure, and then you figure out some of the mystery, and then there's some kind of a twist usually. And so, yeah.
What was your favorite scene in Stink Bomb?
Hmm. Do you have one in mind?
Yeah, I think my favorite was when the grandma was talking to him from the sniper helicopter and they shoot at him. And they shoot at him a couple times. And I think that at that point, they may have launched one missile at him.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, fuck, what's going on here? And he's just booking it towards this tunnel to get some cover. And, you know, he's driving through the darkness and he's like, oh my God, this shit's getting crazy. Like everybody's dying around me and like people are trying to snipe me. Whew. Well, let's see what's at the end of this tunnel. And you just look up from his vantage point and it's like 70 helicopters and fighter jets. And they're all launching missiles at him. And they're all, you know, even if they're missing by, 20 yards, that would still blow him up. But you just see him,
yeah.
Mr. Beaning, Mr. Magooing, like, whoa, this is so crazy. And just not dying and not falling or whatever. And then you see like even more fighter jets come in and they're dropping bombs on him. And then after all of those pilots die, you just see him in this mist and his rickety ass electric bicycle is just kind of like, and he just looks like he's been put through the ringer. I thought that was so fucking funny. And I don't know, man. I really loved that middle section where the escalation just got ridiculous.
I really enjoyed most of the stuff immediately following him waking up from his nap, because at first there's this very sort of horror film element to it, especially when he goes up to the secretary and she's slumped and he's kind of like, hey, like, are you awake? And he kind of touches her shoulder, and the way she falls out of the chair lifeless and her eyes are kind of rolled back into her head is so creepy. And then going into the different rooms and seeing all the people laying there lifeless in different states, you know, obviously somebody is just trying to grab something, or you can kind of see the moments right before their death and how that must have been, and walking through and the realization that I'm the only one like alive in this building. That stuff, I was just like, this is a thing of nightmares. Like I've had this nightmare, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's where the misdirect of like when it became a comedy.
Yeah.
Because like, that first scene is very horrifying,
right?
And very, sci-fi Contagion type thing. And then it becomes a slapstick comedy and it's like, and there's a ska soundtrack. Like I just saw a bunch of medical experts dead, like and they look fucked up too.
Yeah.
And it's like
and then occasional experimental jazz.
Look, I love ska. Our theme song is kind of ska-y. I wrote that. But I was like so confused when ska music started playing in this. Like, woof, whoa, that's crazy that was happening. How did I get out of that? And then just seeing him in his suit all tattered and his bike all tattered. That was pretty fucking funny. But based off of that opening scene, I didn't think it was going to go in that direction.
No, it goes from slice of life to sitcom to horror to slapstick adventure.
Yeah.
Thriller. It covers so many genres.
Thriller.
Is there anything else you want to add about this?
No, I think we covered pretty much all of it. I mean, we talked about the soundtrack at the beginning and throughout this and
animation.
the animation style. Not much I would want to add, but yeah, I enjoyed it overall.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
Good. Shall we crank them amps?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I'm going to crank my amp. I'm going to give Stink Bomb a 9 out of 11 because I really enjoyed it. Thought the animation was good. Thought it was a funny concept. The only things that I didn't really, enjoy, it's not that I didn't enjoy it. I just wish that they would have explained the whole flowers blooming thing. Like they didn't pay that off and it didn't make much sense to me. Maybe I missed something in how that was supposed to turn about, but I really enjoyed it. And like, coming into this, maybe it was like a thing of expectations. coming into this being like, well, this is going to be a letdown after Magnetic Rose. Maybe my expectations were so low that it was like, oh, well, this was kind of pleasant. I thought it was going to be a piece of dog shit.
I thought it was genuinely entertaining, and I think that the concept was interesting, and I thought it was well executed. I enjoyed the weird mashup of music that shouldn't really fit but kind of worked, and the like just how dark it was and yet how funny. Like I really liked some of the way that came together. And it's funny, I wanted to give it a 9 as well.
There we go. Dude, we are on point with our memory amp crank.
So far, I would love it if the last one were wildly different.
It's a 1 and you're like 11. Look, and at the end we're just like, what?
It's happened before, so.
Yeah. Well, that is our episode on Stink Bomb, part 2 of Memories. And thanks for listening, everybody. Subscribe and rate and review and all that good stuff. We have a YouTube channel where we put up clips and also whole episodes of the podcast now.
Yeah, they're going up on YouTube now, and you should check out all the clips that Joe works on. He does some really funny animations.
Yeah, we animate them with like our kind of Bitmoji people, and then I put in parts of the movie that we're talking about so you can kind of get a visual representation of what we're talking about, provided that the film is able to be like ripped at some point. You know, there's a lot of movies that are very well copyright protected, and it's like, oh, I'm using still images. it's rough. But yeah, subscribe to the YouTube channel. All you need to do is search the Anime Movie Podcast, and we should pop right up. And anything else, email in if you have any questions or movie suggestions, the Anime Movie Podcast at gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at the Anime Movie Podcast. I think that's it. I think that's all of it, right?
I think that's it. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, thanks for listening to our episode on Stink Bomb. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Anime Movie Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at the Anime Movie Podcast, and you can reach out via email at the Anime Movie Podcast at gmail.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell a friend. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.